Hi everybody, it's Heather. Today I thought I'd come on and show you how to make a really simple dress for your Blythe dolls. It is really simple, so anybody who's expecting complex sewing or dressmaking skills, this isn't the video for you. But if you are fairly new to Blythes or you just want to make some dress for your dolly, the principles apply to any of your dolls, but I thought I'd show you a couple of items that might sort of help make things a little bit easier. So I'm going to show you that today. The reason being that I was going through a few of my Blythe bits the other day and I came across this dress that I made some time ago, and I thought what I will do is just finish it off today because it just needs a little bit of ribbon just to go around the neck area. And this is a really simple dress with just a cotton skirt, using this sort of knitted slash, I don't know whether it's crochet or it's almost like it's like a woolen lace. So I don't know whether you can see that well, but it's got a little bit of give in it. It's made out of wool, and it's a trim effectively. I think that would just be used maybe trimming furniture or blankets or something like that. But I'm sure you'll be able to get hold of this sort of thing on the internet or in your local haberdashery. And this makes a really easy top for a dress. Because sometimes we don't want to sew all the little fiddly bits on the tops, you know, doing arms and things like that can be quite fiddly for somebody making a dress. So this just makes life a little bit easier, and I thought it might be nice to show you. So this is the dress that I made, and I used just a cotton skirt, the lovely trim at the top, just added a little rose, and I've added some, this is actually a silk scarf that I tore in order to add a little bit of ruffle on the bottom, and I did add an underskirt underneath this one. Now I'm not going to do all of that today, but it just gives you the idea of things that you can add yourself onto the dress. So what we're going to do is do it step by step so that you hopefully can make something fairly simple and easy yourself. This dress is literally just tied with ribbon, and that's what makes it nice and easy because it will fit both doll bodies. It was actually on this doll body when I found it, but it makes it nice and easy because there's no fancy fasteners. It is literally just a piece of ribbon. This is silk ribbon, but you can use any ribbon. And it makes it just a nice and easy dress for the dolls to wear, different doll bodies, and nice and easy to make. So I'm going to add that ribbon onto there, and then that will actually hold it up, and it will not fall down then hopefully with the doll. So I thought I'd finish that off today, but what we're going to do is show you the step-by-step way of doing it. So I'm just going to move those dolls out of the way. Now the first thing you'll want to do, if you're not doing this for your Blythe doll, or if you are doing it for your Blythe doll, you want to just make a quick measurement of how long you want your dress to be. Now I work with Blythe dolls obviously, and measuring the doll from the waist down to the approximate area that you want the dress to end is 4 inches. So what you'll do is double that then and cut out a circle with a diameter of 8 inches. Now I've done that already, so I have lots of these and I cut them out in advance so that I've got lots to go if I want to. So this is a circle of fabric that I quite like, and it's an 8-inch diameter, but obviously you can make it a bit longer if you wanted a little bit of a longer dress. So if you wanted it down to her ankles, you didn't want to add any of this, but I like to add the ruffles and things on the edges. So for me the 8-inch diameter circle works absolutely beautifully, but obviously you can make them a lot longer or shorter. If you did want to do a little mini rah-rah sort of skirt, then you could do that. And then we have to bear in mind how big the waist of the doll is. So if you're doing this for a bigger doll, obviously it might be a bigger circle, and the waist of the doll is approximately between sort of 3 to 3.25 inches. So that would be sort of the waist of the doll like that. Now how I move on from this circle is I would fold the circle in quarters, like that, and then in order to get that tiny little waist in there, I'll just snip a tiny bit off the corner. So it's a rough circle, it's not really a circle, to be honest with you. So you'll see, I basically just cut the tip off there, and that then makes enough of a hole for the doll's waist. You'd be surprised how tiny the waists are actually. But obviously you can't get that on your doll. That's going to get stuck because the hips and the thighs are too big for that to go on. So once you've cut that, just snip a little bit further to make a slit at the back, and then that will fit comfortably. She's swivelling round, bless her. That's going to be at the back. That will then fit onto your doll, and what we're going to do then, we'll actually hem up the bit that you've slit, but that's actually going to remain open, so you've actually got some give when you're taking the doll in and out of the dress. So what we're going to do next is add the top part of the dress, and we're going to hem up the back that we've just cut. So I've actually done a couple of those. I'll show you these ones that I've done. Because I make quite a few of these little skirts and dresses, I've got quite a few of these circles, and I pre-add a little bit of ruffle on the bottom and sometimes some embellishments, because then they're ready to go when I fancy making something and my hands are itchy and I want to do something. So I have done a few here, and you can see the edges. Well, these are going to be quite short dresses, so this is made longer because I've added the silk ruffle on the bottom. These ones will be quite short, and all I've done is just add a little bit of vintage seam binding, and I don't know whether you can see there, just a few little beads in between, and that's just a nice way of decorating the edge of your skirt. But if you want your skirt to be longer, you can add some longer ruffles, and I have this big bag, oh excuse the rustling, I have this big bag of trims and skirts and bits of fabric ready to go, and I've just made these in advance. And then I could add that, if I wanted to add this to the edge of the skirt, then you can see that that would make it quite a bit longer. Now if I was adding a large trim like this and I didn't want to hand sew it on, as in the case of this skirt, I would actually get my circle, and and before adding the trim I would actually cut it all the way down so it was completely open, and that way it's a lot easier then to overlock or sew on the sewing machine if I'm doing a few of them onto the edge. So I'd make a seam all the way down, and then I would re-sew that up. Now I know that sounds a bit odd having to redo it, but it just makes life a lot easier when you're working on a sewing machine to have that as a sort of an open piece of fabric to sew the ruffle onto the edge. So I would do that if I was using a larger piece of ruffle and I wanted to use a sewing machine. But you can also add bits of netting and all sorts underneath if you want to, and just follow the same procedure of just adding that. So what I'm going to do now is stop the camera, and I'm going to sew on using this gorgeous delicate pink to match my ribbon. I'm going to sew the edges of this just to hem them slightly, so that will be open slightly, and I'm going to add a piece of this lovely trim, and all I've done is cut this trim to approximately the size that will go around the bust of the doll, with a tiny bit extra so that I can add just tuck that in and just make it neater on the edges, so that it doesn't gape, but the edges aren't going to then fray. So I'm going to add that onto here right now, but I'm going to stop the camera because you'll have to excuse me, my eyesight is not brilliant these days, and I have to get a little bit closer to do the sewing, so I'm not going to do that on camera, so I shall be back in a... Okay, so I've done the first part. You can just see where this is the inside of the fabric. I've just basically hemmed around the little hole for the waist and the bit that we snipped, and I just added a few extra stitches towards the bit that we snipped down, so that the cut doesn't continue down the dress. So let's just stop that. Now don't worry about that, it's going to be at the back of the dress. You can always add a little bow or something like that if you like, just to hide that stitching. You can also, if you don't like stitching, you could also potentially use something like phrase stop, just to stop that going any further, or to you could use potentially fabric glue just to hem that bit as well potentially. I've not done that myself, but that might work just to sort of keep those edges in check. So now I'm going to add the bit for the bust. So just before attaching the top part, the bodice as it were, with the wool, that's not going to, okay, you can see all I'm doing is just adding a few stitches, so I'm tucking the ends in and just adding a few stitches, and then it stops this fraying from happening. So I just do that before I attach it to the skirt part. So just another little tip when you're sewing the bodice trim on, if you just find the centre point of the front of your dress and just pop a little pin, or these wonderful little pegs that I got off Amazon. They're great for, they're actually, I think they're for quilting, but it just pegs it in place. So you can see that's my back and that's the front. So I just peg the front bit in place, and then you can see, you can start stitching then from the top of the bit that you cut down from, the slit that you cut down from. So you can stitch from there and just follow the little waist band area round till you get to where the peg bit is, and then start again until you get round to the top of the slit again. Hope that makes sense. But this, having it pegged there, just helps a little bit so that you know you've got an equal amount of fabric both sides. Okay, so now we've got that attached. All I did was sew all the way round the waist and attach that. Just make sure that it's well attached. My advice is, with any doll clothing sewing, is small stitches close together, and it does take a little bit of patience sometimes, but it's worth adding lots and lots of tiny stitches. That keeps things in. So that's attached, and while that thread is still attached, I'm actually going to add the ribbon, and I thought this might be nice because it goes quite nicely, although could probably do with a slightly pinkier hue, but I'm going to attach the ribbon to the back to tie it closed, and you can see that that will then go over the bust of the doll, and the ribbon will tie it closed at the back. So you can see that this, because it's an 8-inch circle, it just ends about knee height for the doll. Now you could, if you wanted to, just keep it as a skirt, or potentially just use it as a skirt anyway. It just has a high waist, but that's how it's going to finish. So I'm going to add the ribbon at the back and just a little bit round to tie round the top of the dress. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I've just started sewing the ribbon on. So what I've done, I've actually found a ribbon that I prefer to the original one I picked out, because it's got a pinky hue and it goes nicely with the yo-yo that I've sewn on the front of the dress. I've cut 2 lengths, and I actually cut them double the length because this ribbon's slightly thinner than the other one, and I think it'd be nice when I tie the bow, it will have a nice sort of double streamer on the back, and that will look quite nice. But also that helps me to sew it on, because it means when it's double I can sew through the ribbon, but because it's silk ribbon it is quite delicate. I can then sew over the ribbon, over and over, sort of in a crisscross fashion, almost like putting a button on, and then that sort of anchors it a lot more securely. So I'm just doing that now. I've put one side on, I'm about to put the other side on, and then I'm going to do the bit for the neck line, and that is naturally in a longer length so that it's doubled over, because you want you want a piece going each side of the neck. So I'll just sort of fold that over and then anchor that in the middle of the dress. I've also picked out a little ribbon, but I'm not sure whether I'm going to keep that now because of the colour, but we'll see. I might add that as well. Okay, so that's the dress done. I decided not to add the ribbon rose. I might do it at a later date. It is quite pretty. What would you do? Would you put that on, that colour, or not? Let me know what you think in the comments. But that's the dress done. So let's pop it on our headless model and let's see what it looks like. So just pop it on like that, then it ties around the neck. So we're going to just flip her over, tie a bow, now the reason I use headless models is because when you're trying to use a dress form, you don't really want all that lovely Blythe hair going everywhere. It does get in the way a little bit when trying to tie bows on dresses sometimes, and you're trying to stitch things and check for size. Right, so there we go. So that's what this dress looks like, possibly with that in place, but I'm thinking for now no. So this is what the dress looks like. So it's really cute, pretty simple and easy. Hopefully I managed to explain it well enough for you to be able to have a go, and we'll leave it at that for today. Thanks ever so much for joining me. I hope you do have a go. If you do, let me know how you get on in the comments below. And I am on Instagram. I don't use Instagram very often, but you're more than welcome to find me on Instagram and follow me there, or tag me there, and add a picture of your own creation so that I can see what you've done as well, or just add some pictures of your own dollies and tag me so that I can see what you've got. So take care everybody. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.